Whoa! Kia ora team, I didn't see you there. Welcome to this video for Unit Standard 29774. I'm the presenter and I'm going to take you on a journey, an adventure through the wonderful world of Microsoft Publisher. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get amongst it. Alright team, so firstly what we want to do is we want to open up Microsoft Publisher. So we click it, we open it up and we come to this opening page. Now this opening page is pretty awesome, and that's because it's got a whole bunch of templates and things here. So we've got the classic blank A4 landscape, but we've also got brochures, business cards, newsletters, postcards, a whole bunch of different documents, okay, that we have templates for. So let's say I click on brochures and a little birdie told me that you may be doing a brochure as part of your work or your assessment. You open it up and there's a whole bunch of templates. You click on one and you can see over here an example of what it would look like. Slightly bigger than this example of what it would look like over here. We can scroll down and there's a whole bunch of templates here, guys. Each one has its own unique style and look. It's really up to you which one you'd want to use, or if you would want to use a manual one. But I'm just going to go ahead, click open, because really what I want is I want this blank A4 document. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is that's quite small, so I'm just going to increase the size to 100%. 100% is 100% awesome. Okay, now to start off, I like to know what I'm doing, and sometimes to do that I need some help. How do I get help? I could ask Google. I could open up the search engine, type in what I want to do, and I'd get the answer. I could also go up to the top right and click this question mark. Click it and type in what I want. So let's say, how do I insert an image? Question mark. And search. And it comes up with a list of options that I can read and help. This is showing 1 to 10 of 474,000. A lot of people have decided to write about how to insert a picture into Microsoft Publisher. Now, I don't know what version of Publisher you're running at your organization, whether it's 2010, 2016, whatever. They all act in a similar way. They might look a little bit different, but all of your buttons and your tabs are gonna do the same thing, okay? So if this publisher looks a bit different to yours, don't worry too much about it. It's no biggie, okay? So what I might do is make it a bit smaller so it fits on your screen there. Perfect, look at that. Okay. Now, I like to take shortcuts. Not in these videos, okay? Like, I'll never take a shortcut when it comes to your learning. But I'm talking about keyboard shortcuts. Now, your standard Microsoft shortcuts, Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste, Control-P for print, they're all going to work on Publisher. I'm not going to give you too many more hints about what keyboard shortcuts there are, because I think that might be a question in your workbook or your assessment, okay? So have a play with your keyboard shortcuts, see what you can come up with. Another great thing that you can do in Publisher is just have a look at your screen display. So right at the start you saw me zooming in. You can also zoom out. Okay, this is your classic screen display option. You can maximize, minimize, bring it back, take it back to my normal, how I had it before. You can also go File, go down to your options. This is quite cool. This is the option list for pretty much the entire program. You can do whatever you want here. You can enable mini toolbars on selection. You can have a look at your spelling and grammar options, your language stuff. So do you want it New Zealand English, American English? Do you want it in Swahili? It's up to you. Advanced display options, okay, right here. What you can do is you can show screen tips on objects if you want to, or you can change what the rulers on the left hand side and the top of your screen are going to be shown as. By default they're in centimeters, but you can change them to inches, or if you have very good vision, pixels. If I were you, I'd leave them on centimeters because that's the easiest one, you know. We can have a look at customizing the ribbon, so what tabs are on the top and how we can use them. And we can have a look at our quick access toolbar, and that's going to dictate what we can see on our toolbar just below the tabs. So that is how you customize your screen display. So I suppose it's time for us to have a look at creating some stuff. Okay. Well, what I want to do is I'm at home. I'm at the home tab. I'm actually at work. I'm not creating this film from home. There'd probably be some cats in the background if I was doing that. I've got two of them myself, Skeletor and Mr. Nugget. They're pretty cool. Anyway, I digress. That happens to me quite often. I'm sorry. What I want to do is I want to insert some text. So I go into insert and I'm greeted by just this mammoth amount of stuff I can put in, okay? I can put in new pages, insert blank page, and you'll see on your left hand side here, page navigation, I've now got 2 pages. I can bang in a table. Okay, tables are good if you've got some data that you want to insert. So let's say I want to put in a table. Already I've digressed from inserting text. So with the table, you can decide what borders you want to have. Okay, so you can see if I highlight everything, all borders, I've now got all the borders there. I can change the colour of the lines. Let's make it a nice purple. Might have to do that for all of it. I can rotate it. I can change the width and the height of the cells. I can rotate it. I can put things in it. Really, the world is my oyster. You've got table formats. These are like presets. So I've clicked one and it's made my table look a bit different. So we've got 2 lines here. This would be, I'm assuming, like my titles, where I'd put my titles, and then I'd put in my data down here. Nice and easy. I can rotate it manually by clicking that little green dot there. Look, it's on the ocean. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. Back to the insert tab. We've got pictures, shapes. Shapes are handy. We all know what shapes are. You can use shapes to draw little pictures. So we've got a roof, we've got a house. Look at that, that's pretty cool. If I hold control and click on both of them, what I can do is group them. And so now that they're grouped, they act as one image. So I can change the size of that one image. That's pretty handy. And with that, you've got all your drawing tools, you know. You can fill the shape with a colour. You can change the outline colour and how thick that line is. 6 points. Yeah, look at that. I can give it a shadow if I want to. I can even change the settings on that shadow to make it thicker and a different colour. Stuff like that. But back to doing some text. Draw a text box. I'm gonna draw my text box. There is my text box. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller so I can make my text box a bit bigger. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna type something, okay? Let's say the presenter is awesome. That text is a little small, isn't it? Pretty hard to see. To you guys, it just looks like very small text, as it should. So what I can do is highlight it, and in the Home tab, I can just play with it. I can make it bold, change the size of the font. There we go, the presenter is awesome. Do you see that? Change the font. Change the alignment, so justified, right aligned, left aligned. That was actually centered, sorry, this is justified. My bad. You've got your line spacing options. You can see how that's changing the spacing between the two lines. We can also have columns. Okay, it's not going to look this great for just 3 words. This is for if you're doing a newsletter or writing a newspaper article, something like that. They quite often like to have 2 or 3 columns. If in your brief you ever see they want it in 3 or 4 columns or 2 columns, this is how you do that. Nice and easy to set up. You can also go more columns, and you can actually play manually with the spacing. How good is that? Now I want to show you something. I'm going to type some more words, okay? He went to the shop to get a pie. Now I typed in everything I just said. He went to the shop to get a pie. But it just says he went to the shop. Where did the rest of my text go? This is magic. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. You see, the text is too big for the text box. And we know this because my little dots in the corners and on the sides of the box have turned red. So that's saying, hey, presenter, too much text, not enough box, buddy. All I need to do to fix that would be either to make my font smaller or just to make my text box a bit bigger. Easy. Now with your text, I've already gone through a lot of the stuff that you can do with your text. We can also format our box. So we can choose where our text is aligned using this here. What we can do is give it a little drop cap. A drop cap is when the first letter of your paragraph or your book or whatever is a lot bigger. Imagine those old school storybooks. They used to just be like real keen on drop caps. That's how you do that. You've got some things over here, text to fit. That's going to make your text fit best to your shape, your box. So just have a play with this, guys. There's a lot of stuff you can do with your text. If I was to tell you everything you can do, this video would just be way too long, okay? So I'm just teaching you the basics, everything that you need to pass, and to make your documents look on point. Or as my nan likes to say, on fleek. I don't know why she says that, but she does. Now your shape, your text box, you can change the color of it. Put in a nice light salmon. You can put on an outline. This is really handy for if you're making like a poster and you really want your text box to stick out. You'd put on a nice border, put on a nice color. It just looks good, you know. Well, this particular one doesn't look that good, but you have the tools to make it look great. Okay, we can change the shape that it's in. Now let's say I want my little house here to be in front of my text box here. How do I do that? All I have to do is click my house, or let's actually make it easy on me and click the text box and send it to back. And that's actually going to change up the layering in your document, okay? So each element is on its own unique layer. Think of it as like a sandwich, and you can actually rearrange the ingredients on your sandwich to look how you want it to look. Easy. Now, I'm personally a bit of a fan of pictures, so what I'm going to do is on my second page, I'm going to put a nice picture on here. It'll be awesome. So I'm going to go insert. I'm not going to go clip art or shapes or anything like that. I'm going to go picture. And I'm going to find a picture which I've previously saved using good file management techniques. And I'm going to insert the photo that I want. So I'm going to go get an old Halloween photo that I've got, put it in, and there we go. Whoa, look at that. Look at that handsome chap. I believe that might be the presenter in his Halloween costume from last year. It's pretty trendy, I think. So inserting an image is as easy as that. Or is it? We've got the image in there, but what does that mean? It's a bit big. Maybe I want to make it a little bit smaller. All I got to do is click on one of the little dots at the corners, and when you're changing the shape of images, guys, make sure that you do change the shape from the corners, okay? Because what that's going to do is it's going to let your picture retain its original shape. It's not going to distort. For your assessment, you essentially, if you distort your images, you're not going to pass it. So, distorting an image, let's say that I wanted to change the size of it, but I decided to click from one of the boxes along one of the edges, and I drag it out that way. Now, I look like a stout Ninja Turtle. If I make it a bit shorter like that, I'm even stouter. And you can see that it just doesn't look that great, hey? So always, when you're changing your size, go from the corners. Just make life easy on yourself. Now, with my picture looking like that, I'm not the biggest fan of that, to be honest. I could just delete it and re-import it, reinsert it into my document. Or I could come up here to the top left. You see this little arrow here, this undo arrow? I can just undo my mistakes until I get back to where I want to be. And if I decide that I've gone too far, I've gone back a little bit too much, I can click the redo button, and that redoes what I've just undone. So that's how you go back and forth, okay? So if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. just undo it. Easy. Now with my picture, if I go into picture formats after clicking on it, there's a bunch of cool things I can do. I can play with the brightness of my image, so make it brighter, darker. I can play with the contrast a bit, make it look just horrific if I wanted to, or just flatten it out a bit and make it look horrific. We could recolor it, so I could make it a nice sepia tone. It's a bit trendy with the kids these days, I think. I can also go ahead and change the shape of my image. So I've clicked that and it's made it a nice oval or an oblong. We can put in a nice border. So let's say a deep purple. Again, can change the size of it. Put a caption in it. We can send it to the back or bring it forward. We can rotate the picture if we want to. If we want to do it automatically, we click rotate. And let's say rotate left 90 degrees. It rotates to the left 90 degrees. There we go. If I wanted to bring it back to the top, I can manually click on that little green dot again and bring it back up. Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow. I'm not 100% sure why. This button here, this is a cool button. This is crop. Okay, so crop, if I click it, my dots at the edge of the picture are going to turn into these black little lines. And if I click on one and hold it, I can actually get rid of some of my picture. When I'm saying, okay, that's what I want to be in my image, click on crop again, and I've just cropped an image. Easy as that. Another cool trick to bear in mind is, I'll go back to this page. We've had a look at the insert tab. We know how to put in a text box, pictures, new pages. We've also got headers and footers. So you put in a header or a footer, and what that'll do is it will, let's say this is a footer. Now what's open now is the master page. I'll get into that in a little bit, okay? Close the master page. Now my footer is on the bottom of both pages. This is a footer. That's quite handy if you have to put your name or whatever on your assessment, okay? We can also put in a page number. I quite like page numbers. Lets me know where I'm up to while I'm reading or writing. I like to put them on the top right, but that's just personal preference. You can put them wherever you like. I click on it and you can see the top right, there's a page number there. And on the second page, there's a 2. Awesome. You can also format your page numbers, and you can actually do whatever you like. You can change them into Roman numerals, ABCs. You can make it so your first page doesn't have a page number, but it starts with page 2. So that's quite a cool thing. It's pretty popular if you're writing an essay and you have like a cover page or something. But what I'd like to move on to now is some of our page layout options, okay? So page layout is essentially how your page is going to look and behave. Let's have a look at margins first. So margins are essentially the blank bits on the sides of your document. We can see it on my one. It's got this blue line around it delineating where the margin is. I can do a wide margin, so we can see that space there got a lot bigger. I can do custom margins. Now, custom margins are pretty awesome. You can actually manually change how big you want your margins to be. So let's say I want them 1.4, 1.04, 1.54 on the top, and let's say I want to manually highlight and type in 1.7 centimeters for the bottom. Click OK, and that's manually changed my margins. Now if you're typing a document in Word or something, your words aren't actually going to go out of the margins, and even in Publisher all of your content is going to try and stay in the margins. But I mean, you can manually put stuff out of the margins, but it tries to snap into the margin. So there, I've put that outside of the margin, but I still have that line, that box telling me where the margins are. We can also play with orientation. Okay, so orientation, do I want it portrait or do I want it landscape? So we can see my page size, well, my page has flipped. So where it was horizontal, where it was vertical, it's now horizontal. But this has also changed how my stuff's arranged on the page. For a lot of documents that you're going to create, say brochures and posters and things like that, you're going to want to use a portrait orientation. But landscape is very handy for things like brochures, okay? And with brochures, what you can do is you can click on guidelines here, and what that does is it brings up a bunch of templates for guidelines. So you might be able to see that I now have some lines showing me if I wanted to make a brochure where I should put my content. So I should put my title up in this top box here, put my content, put another title here, put my content, put another title here, put my content. But if I were making a brochure, I would have actually just selected a template when I first opened the document. But that's what your guidelines are for. You can also open up and manually make your columns in your guidelines, okay? So you can say I want 6 columns and I want them to be 1 centimeter apart. Okay, so we've got 6 columns. They're very thin columns because there is a little over 1 centimeter distance between each one. I wouldn't recommend making columns that thin, guys, or that many columns. It's just going to look awful. This is just to show you how to do it. Okay? So do as I say, not as I do. That's really bad advice. Okay, I'm going to want to change my orientation back to portrait. Perfect. Okay, let's put my stuff back into its margins. Make it a bit bigger so we can see. Now, size. Size is quite cool. Because with this, the default that I selected was A4. But let's say I want my paper size to be a bit smaller. I want it to be A5. All I have to do is select A5. So my paper got smaller, but my elements on the page stayed the same size. So what I'd have to do is I'd have to go and change the size of those, just so they weren't overbearing on the page. Because you do have to sort of think about how your document looks, okay? But the workbook goes into that, so it's not too much of a biggie for this video. Let's say I want it to be big. I want it to be A3. Okay, that's sort of like a small poster size. We can see that my elements now look tiny on the page. So I would have to go and make them big, just so they don't look teensy tiny on the page when I print it or share it or save it. Also on this page design page, page design page, we can change the fonts if we want to. So that's one way of changing fonts, but honestly I would just do that in Home, or in text box formats. It's going to be easier for you. We can also change the background color of our page. So we can choose, let's say, a nice salmon, or we can do this whole gradient background here, or we can go into more backgrounds and do it manually. So let's say I want 2 colors, I want it to shade, let's go diagonal up. I want the first color to be, let's say, a nice light pink or a light purple. The second one to be like a bluey grey. Click OK. And we can see it's changed the background color of my document. That's quite cool, eh? Now, we've got this little one here at the end. Master pages. A master page, if we go to Edit Master Page, this is, think of it as sort of like your preset page, okay? So let's say we put in some page design here, okay? Put in a background color, like a salmon or a light pink, okay? And then we were to change some of the other options of the document. What this does is it remembers all of those settings, and you can apply it to your other pages. So we can see this one had already changed, so it wasn't going to be affected by my master page. But this page down here, page 2, was given those settings because it got affected by the master page. So it is good to have, you know, the same sort of theme, you know, color schemes and like font formats, things like that running throughout your document. If you have 8 or 10 pages, you want them all to look similar or have a similar style. And that's because you want your flow to be on point. Okay, you don't want your document to look random and jumbled and just meh. You want it to look like it relates to itself. Each page looks like it belongs, and using a master page is one way to do that. Let's have a look at some just basic editing techniques. You know, things like moving. You click on your element and you just move it around using your mouse. You can copy it either using your keyboard shortcut or by right clicking, copy. Okay, this is awkward. We're taking some time to just load, think about what we're doing. There we go. And then I can either use the keyboard shortcut to paste it, or again, right click, paste. Now, we've copy and pasted my image. We can undo and redo that copy and paste, but we know how to do that. We can also delete this image, and we can delete anything we want really, either by selecting it and pressing backspace, or right click, delete object, done. Now, before we print my document, let's say I've got a text box in here, okay? And this text box, it's spelt incorrectly. So let's say spell stiff correctly. Now I'm going to make this text bigger so you can see it. I've got some bad spelling here, eh? Just the worst. Spelly stoof correctly. Well, I spelt correctly, so at least that's a pat on the back for me. But if this were the case, I'd want to go and review it, eh? just make sure that my spelling and grammar is where it needs to be. To do that, I hit review with a review tab, and this brings this up, okay? Now here we can change the language of our document. We can open a thesaurus, do a little bit of research if we're allergic to Google, or we can have a look at spelling. So we click on spelling, and it brings up this box here. Now this box is where you can control what you want to do with your misspelt words. You can ignore stuff, you can change it, change all. You've got suggestions here. Now I was trying to spell. So I'm going to click it from the list, change. Then I'm going to click stuff. What? It's already got stuff there automatically, so I'm going to hit change. And there, I've just spell checked my document. Nice and easy, eh? So anytime you're thinking about printing off a document, make sure that you run a spell check just to be safe. Now, let's have a look at this tab, View tab. This is where we can change how we view things. We can have a look at our master page that we created. We can do a 2-page spread. And this is particularly handy if we were making a booklet. If I'd clicked on a booklet template at the very start, I'd be able to look at both pages together. We can have a look at boundaries, rulers, we can have a look at the zoom, page width, things like that. But I wouldn't worry too much about it because most of our formatting that we need to do, we've already looked at, okay? Mailings here, don't worry about mailings. Just don't worry about it. If you had picked a theme at the very start when we were opening our new document, these colours here are how you change it. And you can see it's actually changing the content on my page as well. Let's go Metro. It's changed it to pink and stuff, black and grey. So you can see what it'll look like. That's pretty cool. Let's pretend that my document looks great. Just amazing, okay? Then what we're going to want to do is go ahead and let's say I want to print it. File, print. That's going to bring me up to this screen, or something very similar depending on what version of publisher you're running. Here I can change how many copies I want to print off. I can have a look at how it's going to be laid out. This is handy if you're creating a booklet or a brochure, something like that. I can decide whether I want to print on both sides of the page or print it one-sided. I can change the colour, so black and white colour. I can also have a look at printer properties. So our printer here at my organisation, we have the option of stapling documents in the printer. It's pretty flash, I know. I like to brag about it. So as long as you know that, I'm happy. And then just go ahead and hit print. Easy as that. Last but not least, saving and sharing. File, save as. Now, hopefully your organisation will have told you where to save your documents and how to use their folder structure. But I'm just going to run a example anyway. I'm going to create a new document, or a new folder, sorry. I'm going to call it, actually I'm going to call it test. Okay, I'll double click into test. I'm going to call my document example. I'm going to go ahead and save it. So that's how you save it. You can also save it as different file types. So let's say I wanted to save it as PDF. Click PDF, hit save. For you guys and for handing in your documents, you probably want to keep them just as publisher files, okay? You probably want to stay away from exporting them to PDF, unless, of course, you're asked to do that in your brief. Right, so I've saved my document and I want to share it. First, I'm going to try and share it as an email. I open up a new email and I've set it out a little funky like this so that you don't see any of my personal data or my email list. Just add in a subject, hit the attach button. In most email systems it's got the little paper clip there. Go ahead and find it. So I put mine in a folder called test, called it example. So I'll upload the PDF, attach as copy, and then from there you can go ahead and send it. If we want to review and comment on our document, unlike Microsoft Word, there is no way to just right click and insert a comment. What we have to do is just insert a text box just next to the document and write your comment here. So that way it's not over top of any of the document, but you can still see your comment. You could draw a little arrow to the place where you want to be, anything like that. Nice and simple. Now, uploading to the cloud can be pretty funky, pretty easy. What I personally use is OneDrive. Okay, so what I do is I activate my OneDrive account. I hit upload, files. I find the file that I want to share. So in this case, example. It says uploading one item. And there it is. And from there, I can share it with whoever I want to share it. Nice and easy. This is a very handy way of sharing documents with people who might not have access to your folders or files on your computer, but you still want to show them the stuff. So that's about it for this film, guys. We've gone through a fair amount of stuff. We've gone through how to find help, how to navigate through all the toolbars and all the tabs, how to insert and how to manipulate and edit things like text, shapes, images. We've learned how to play with the page design and the page layout, put color in the background, change the orientation, learned a little bit about inserting grids and tables. We've learned a little bit about formatting. We've learned how to undo, redo, spell check. We've played a little bit with printing and saving and sharing your work. So from here, have a bit of a play, read the briefs that you'll get given later on in the workbook and follow them. Okay? Make sure that you're making things to the brief and make sure that what you're making looks nice. Make sure that it follows the principles of page layout. And honestly, it's pretty hard to go wrong from there. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you've learnt something. Presenter out.